Hey, what's up, guys? Real quick before we get into this episode, know that there is some explicit language. I don't recommend listening to this one with your kids. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Tactical Baby Gear podcast. In this episode, I've got Mr. Mike Shaw with us, aka the Ink Monster of Goon Squad Tactical. He's a super interesting cat, former law enforcement officer, has some strong opinions about things. He's seen a lot of things, and I want to talk to him about it. So, Mike, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for giving us some of your time.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. How are things going? How was
busy?
Yeah,
busy actually. Business is going really well.
Good.
I just released a whole new collection, and that's almost gone. So now I'm trying to come up with some designs for the fall collection, and doing podcasts and content with different people, and it's been a lot of fun.
Cool, man. I want to get more into that for sure, but I kind of want to go back in history a little bit and hear about where you've been and where you're going and how you got where you are. What kind of leading us up to today. Where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm from New Jersey. I kind of moved around a little bit. I was born in Pompton Plains and lived in Patterson, Garfield, Flanders, Mount Olive. Well, kind of all over the place. The Rockaway area, if anyone knows the Rockaway Mall. And then we moved to the Poconos, Pennsylvania in 1998. So then I pretty much grew up in the Poconos from then on.
Right. Were you in the military at all?
I was not.
Yeah, same. So that led you into a law enforcement career. Yeah. And then I think that's what this will cover most of that topic in this podcast, because I know there's a lot of interesting stories, and you're a really cool, very interesting guy. A lot of the people listening or watching have probably seen some of your videos as you dressed in uniform, out skateboarding with kids, doing kick flips in uniform. Like a lot of those videos, you're not the only one that's done that, but several of those kinds of videos that you've done have been very viral. And a lot of people have seen it. So there's a good chance that a lot of people watching have seen you in those videos before. Not really, because you were a little more clean cut back those days. You got you a nice beard going on.
The beard, I actually have a little Viking braid thing going on. That's funny story about that is, so my wife, I caught her creeping on the main actor of The Last Kingdom. It was it's one of our favorite shows on Netflix. And I saw that she liked a whole bunch of his pictures. So I was like, So I actually screenshotted it. I put a bunch of them together, like a layout, and then I posted it and tagged her in it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to grow my hair like a Viking then. So that's why I'm doing this. But that's the beard, I've never been able to grow one in my life. I always had to shave. So, I'm just letting it grow. Yeah.
Good for you. So law enforcement, what led you into law enforcement?
I was around it my whole life. My dad was a police officer in Haledon, New Jersey. His best friend he started as a patrolman, ended up as a police chief in New Jersey. So I was just around it my whole life, and it just was always something that intrigued me. You have these people who they don't even know you, but they're willing to, run into danger for you and respond to these calls for you. And it just, something that always really, really intrigued me. So I was always interested in it. But when I was dating a girl in junior high and beginning of high school, she was Egyptian. Her family was from Egypt, and they were really, really abusive and violent. She would, get beat up by her brother and her father all the time. And I was younger. I was in ninth grade, and there was really not a whole lot I could do. So, after saying that, I'm like, you know what? If I was in that position as a police officer, I could help that person. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of really, really pushed me to do that. Cause a lot of these people are, these victims are they're people that can't protect themselves, and, they're preyed upon because they're weak. And, I always felt like I'm one of those people who would just run into it. So, and you don't really know if
you have you have that sense of responsibility for other people.
It not just responsibility, but I just felt like, I had the guts to do it. And you don't really know until you get involved. Mm-hmm. You get on the street, and then you get in these calls, and you find out real quick if you can do it or not. And it just so happened, getting a call and going to a shots fired or something crazy, it excited me. I'm like, woo! I just going to that, maybe, you know, it just takes a special kind of person. But, you know, like I knew like, okay, I have the fitness and the training and the equipment and the skills to deal with whatever the situation is. You know, I'm not Superman, but I feel like I'm pretty well prepared for just about anything.
Right.
So,
you know, what's interesting about that? I've got a friend of mine who's a cop for a long time, and I caught up with him one time, and I was like, yo man, what's going on with the cop world? You know, he's like, oh, screw that, I quit. He's like, you know, they didn't pay me enough to be shot at and get into some of those kinds of situations, which will lead us into a conversation here in a minute. But what you're saying is, you know, you felt equipped with the tools and the resources and the training that you put yourself through to be adequate to deal with those circumstances versus someone who maybe didn't have that and felt, you know, like they're not paying me enough to do this. So why am I going to put my life in danger for people I don't even know? So it's two totally different ends of the spectrum there, but that'll kind of bring me into one of the topics that I wanted to talk to you about, which was the whole defund the police movement. And I think you're super qualified to talk about this, and you have a lot of opinions about it. And if anybody doesn't follow Mike on Instagram, make sure you follow Inc. It's Inc_monster, right?
With 2 R's. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely go follow Mike because there's some fun videos to watch there. But the whole defund the police movement, I want to hear what you think about it, what your thoughts are on it, etc.
It's the dumbest thing that I've heard. I mean, 2020 has had some really, really stupid things come out of it, but defund the police is probably one of the dumbest. I mean, police departments in general are already underfunded, in my opinion. I do have an issue with the allocation of funds. You know, so okay, if I look at my local police department and their budget is this, what is that money going towards? You know, we should be making sure that it's going towards things that are necessary. But then again, who is someone with zero police experience supposed to say what's necessary for the police department,
right?
You know, to run efficiently.
And I guess we should try to take a step back too and understand the whole sentiment of it and what people were trying to accomplish, because there's a big kind of disconnect too, even with like Black Lives Matter, for example, where there's like the Black Lives Matter sentiment of like what people mean by that. Like, of course, Black Lives Matter. I think we can all agree on that. But the group in the organization is a completely different thing. So, you know, I think it's same with defund the police. And I think that it's such a strong thing to say that, you know, you're talking about defunding the police altogether. You got police departments that cities are trying to dismantle and say, we don't need the police, defund them, choke them, you know, get rid of their air supply basically, and let's just get them out of here. Versus like you're talking about reallocating funds for certain things or this or that. So do you know kind of what, with the whole defund the police, where people are coming from mostly on that statement?
So I understand where some of them are coming from. You know, I've had conversations with people about, you know, well, we want to use this to fund social programs and to fund this and to fund that. And I understand that, although I don't think that you should be taking it from police departments and any type of first responder. The money that the police department gets needs to be used for training and hiring. Now, if you take those funds to give it to a social program, it sounds great in theory, but now you're taking training opportunities away from police. So you want police to be better, more educated, you know, have better training, de-escalation techniques and training on mental health and all this, right? Well, you cannot do that if you're taking money away. Almost every penny at police departments is already accounted for, you know, whether it's training or ammo or hiring, uniforms, you know, vehicle maintenance. I mean, you name it. And there is
using
already,
every bit of it.
There's already expenditures for that. So some of the people that are arguing, well, we don't want to just dismantle the police. We want to just take some of the money and put it towards social programs. I understand where they're coming from, but I still disagree. I think a lot of the defund the police stuff is geared towards actually abolishing the police. Right. And these people have come out and outright said that. You know, we had organization locally here that was speaking at city council, and there was an argument where, well, oh no, they're not calling for abolishing the police, but no, they are. When you go to their website, it says like however many step program, cut their funding and stop hiring and basically lay off officers through attrition and stuff like that. And one of the last things was completely get rid of their funding until it's 0%. So you want to abolish the police is what you want to do. There's plenty of money for social programs and other things that you don't need to take it from police departments. That's just not the right thing to do.
No, so those are all great points. It's super interesting for that people feel like they're going to get either one to abolish the police altogether or to defund them because they think those funds could be used somewhere else, or they feel that the police departments are overfunded and they're militarized and they shouldn't be, and they don't need all this equipment and all this stuff. What they don't realize is, like you're saying, a lot of the funds are allocated to things already, and that they're not getting proper training. Most departments, people, the officers are qualifying once a year with a firearm, for example.
We did twice, but a lot of departments are once a year. And then I'll take a guess how many hours of defensive tactics a year. That's handcuffing, any kind of hand-on techniques.
Oh, I bet.
Take a guess at how many hours a year.
Probably 10 hours. 4
hours a year.
That's on average.
A year. Yeah, that's the average. That's, I worked for 2 different police departments, and that's both what we did, 4 hours.
That's half a day of training.
Pretty much everyone I know, it's 4 hours. That's the bottom of the barrel requirement, and that's pretty much all across the country.
And what we're expecting for our departments to do is to be able to handle any of these situations that we call the police for, whether that's, it could be something as simple as someone broke into my car all the way up to an armed robbery, or even just like other stupid things that really don't require an officer to be there. And I think there's been a lot of talk about that too, right? Of like, there's some things that are more of like social services type stuff that you're expecting an officer to be able to handle some sort of social services type situation. That's like I'm trying to think of a good example, and I'm kind of coming up blank right now, but, and then also deal with an armed intruder or an active shooter or whatever, and then not pay them anything, and then defund them and take their money away and expect them to deal with all this. And then as soon as they're not there, or you want to call on someone to help you, you want them right there to defend you and to help you. Yeah. And it's really interesting.
I really think that people just have a hard time understanding what police officers really do. It's like, would I go into an emergency room and tell a surgeon how to do his job? I have no idea. I mean, I could talk shit all day and say, well, you didn't do this right, you didn't do that right. But you have no idea unless you actually do the job. And that's why people that don't like police, I always recommend, hey, go to your local police department and do a ride along.
Do a ride along, yeah.
Do a ride along on a weekend on a busy shift, like 7 p.m. to 3 a.m., and really, really see what these cops are doing. You're going to get a better understanding, and you're going to kind of appreciate it a little bit more.
We saw that a few years ago. Remember when some of the shootings where they were saying were unjustified shootings, and then they started putting news reporters in some of those situations with like a airsoft gun or whatever.
They were doing, it's force on force, and they usually do it's called simunitions, which is something that I'm actually planning with BLM supporters. So
interesting.
Yeah, I'm planning on, it's going to kind of be like a sit down, not necessarily an interview. I just kind of want to hear, okay, why do you not like police? I want to hear his story, and then I want to bring him into a force on force situation so he can decide, okay, here's the situation. What do I do?
Yeah. Well, and to that point, what they found was like almost every single person unjustifiably shot the other person because they thought something.
Almost every single time.
Right.
When you think about it, like, to put it in perspective for you guys, police and citizens have about 385 million contacts a year, right? So that could be they stop and help you change your tire. They come to your house to help your grandmother off the floor, all the way to an arrest, right? So almost 400 million contacts a year between police and citizens. Out of that, I believe there's only about 12 million charges filed out of that. there's around 50,000 police officers assaulted every year, and there's 1,000 or less deaths from police. So police kill less than 1,000 people a year, and there's almost 400 million contacts a year. Yeah. When you think about that, plus the amount of training that they actually get, which is virtually none, and how they do an amazing job, and out of that, the use of force is almost always justified. Yeah,
almost always. Of course, there's bad apples, and it's unfortunate that there's always a bad apple that makes everyone look bad. And what's interesting to me is a lot of those situations that we've seen that seem like they're not justified, that they were only stopped for this, or there was one that was recent where the guy was drunk, passed out in the parking lot at Wendy's or whatever, but then he continues to not comply with the officer. The officer's asking you to do something. I want to know, and then it escalates, and then it ends up in a guy getting shot. And you're like, well, he was just drunk in a parking lot. Yeah, but then it escalated and all these things happen. There's certainly some de-escalation techniques that people could be aware of or be trained for. But what I really wanted to know, and to see if you had an answer for it, why does it seem like we have a culture and society of people who feel like that they don't need to comply with an officer no matter what the situation is, which then causes the escalation to begin with? If they would just comply with the officer with simple things, everything would be fine.
Yeah. I don't know if I can really nail something down and say, here's the reason why there's a culture of people not obeying commands. I mean, yeah, most of the time, if you're in a use of force situation, listen, if I'm pulled over, I'm going to follow that guy. He's the boss. He's in charge. It's just the way it is. Listen, there's some things that I really tried to keep in mind when I was a police officer. You are the most powerful person in the community. I could take your freedom away and I can kill you. And that's something that officers should really, really take serious. And I think most of them do. Yeah. And people need to understand that this person is authorized and sworn to enforce the laws. They are legally allowed to use necessary force to effect an arrest. And depending on the situation, they could kill you. So you should probably listen to them. And there's going to be times where, their force was used where it shouldn't. But honestly, when you look at the stats and all the studies, it's very rare. But I don't know. I guess I can attribute it to maybe the news media, kind of pitting everyone against each other, and they show the clips that they want, and they just make it seem like the cops always wrong. These the criminals are doing nothing wrong. So then when someone gets stopped, they're like, well, what the hell am I doing? And
I know my rights and all this stuff, exactly. And I'm recording you and all these things that there just seems to be a culture of people who it just blows my mind to think that they're not going to comply. And it seems to me that most of the people who aren't willing to comply are they have something to hide, right?
Yes.
I had a buddy of mine who was a cop for a long time, and he was very high up in the department and did a lot of really cool stuff. But we were driving somewhere one time, and he used to do a lot of like drug arrest stuff, and he said, no means no, and everything else means yes. Have you heard that before?
Not that particular.
Yeah. So he was like, I was like, what the hell does that mean? He's like, no, if you pull someone over and is there any drugs in the cars or anything? He's like, no means no, and anything else means yes. Oh, there shouldn't be, not that I know of.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I guess I just heard it, in different ways, but yeah, people do that all the time. Like I know if I have a weapon on me, right? I know there's no drugs in my car. So if you ask somebody, hey, are there any drugs in the vehicle? There shouldn't be. Do you have a warrant? Not that I know of. I can tell you right now, I don't have any damn warrants. There's no drugs in my car.
Right.
I could tell you that for sure. And yeah, so it's just, like an interview, type of technique where you ask someone a question. And when they say something other than like an affirmative yes or no, you just look into it a little more.
Yeah.
Because people that are hiding something, they say weird stuff. If you don't have drugs in your car, no, there's not. Want to search it?
Yeah.
So
right. Am I being detained? That's my other favorite one. That I just want to slap.
As you have your window rolled down like 1 inch.
Well, and then it turns into you are being detained because now you're not complying. And then it's like, you guys, a lot of these people just bring it on themselves. Just like simple stuff that you're being asked to do.
Very, very simple.
That
you would think.
Right. The media is another big side of it too, that I think has created this huge divide. And what you were saying before is how, a police officer is like so powerful, but also inherently should be so trusted because, you guys are the ones who are willing to kind of put yourselves in harm's way to protect people you don't even know. And everyone trusts that you're going to take care of them. But now there's this like flip side to it there. We can't trust the cops and they're bad people and all this stuff. I bet it's just such an interesting time, and it sounds like you got out sort of just before all this stuff.
It was perfect. Listen, I'm not saying trust everything and anything that a cop would say or do. I'm always wary of pretty much anybody. I really believe in question everything. Whether it's people that you meet, government, question everything. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you have a situation like, that's going on in Kenosha, Wisconsin right now, the media is showing a certain angle of the situation and not the other side of the car. People have to understand that the news makes money off of this stuff, right? So they want ratings. And when there's violence, when there's a cop doing something bad or what appears to be bad, they make money off that because people are going to watch it. They're going to share the videos.
Yeah, and a lot of it is for statistics. As a business, we had a lot of news outlets, media outlets wanting us to advertise on their platform, and they do that by giving we get this many views, we get this many impressions, we get this many clicks to the website, blah blah blah, and they're selling advertising on that. And that's really what it boils down to. And that's how they're making money off of this is by selling the stats.
The news media is a business just like anything else. And I'm not saying take anyone's word for gospel, but like what's going on in Wisconsin and all these other use of force situations, just stop, just slow down. Seriously, just breathe for a second. Okay. And let's wait for some facts. Okay. Not a 15, 20-second clip that was probably edited by, CNN or some other person, really look into it. I'm not saying give everyone the benefit of the doubt, but let's be reasonable.
Yeah. Well, who does a good job. And I saw a few of these, but Colin Noir, who, is a lawyer, and he'll break things down from a legal standpoint and kind of take some emotion out of it, whether, he personally feels it was right or wrong, whatever, but he looks at it like a lawyer and like business and black and white. It's facts. Like, here's what we know at this time. Yeah. More evidence might show itself later, but everyone's, it used to be you were innocent until proven guilty. And these days you are guilty until proven innocent. And it's just
if you're a police officer, you're absolutely guilty until, even if you're proven innocent. These cops are getting doxxed. They just had, a cop that was at his girlfriend's apartment and they went and found him and like shot at him. I mean, it's like the stuff that's going on right now. It seems like people have devalued human life, whether it's a cop or whether it's someone else. They're destroying businesses. There's people getting killed in these riots. It's just amazing, all this stuff that's going on.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that something like this is happening in America. It's just an interesting time to be alive. And, it was just like, I feel like some of it was bound to happen, but I think it got accelerated with the coronavirus. Yeah. And with everyone kind of being stuck at home in quarantine. And then you get this one event that happens with George Floyd, who everyone paints to be like this perfect citizen, which he clearly wasn't. And, and then that just transpires into what we have now. And it's just unbelievable what can happen so quickly and so rapidly. And then cities are being destroyed, and that so many people feel like that's acceptable and then that's an okay thing to do. It just blows my mind. And the amount of other like city officials who are kind of like going along with it or not combating it and don't have things in place. There's some departments who couldn't even handle a lot of the riots and the looting and all stuff. They didn't even know how to handle it because, these are departments that are underfunded. They couldn't even stop it if they wanted to. You got calling in National Guard and all these places to kind of help you because your department can't even handle its own city, and you want to defund them. And I mean, come on. Ugh.
Yep. I could dig into that for an hour, on a separate topic, but I don't know, man. People just, I don't know what it is. I really try to just remember that most people are still good, law-abiding people.
Most,
it's not what. Yeah, there's a lot of crime right now, and these cities there's a lot of violence and these riots and stuff like that. But again, that's what the news wants to show you. Yeah, it's happening, and it's not okay. However, most people are not like that.
Right.
So it's tough to remember sometimes.
Yeah, a lot of the people. So let's kind of bring this full circle. As you're a dad as well. How old's your child now?
2, and then I have a 13-year-old stepson.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'll have to hear some more about that later. Anyways, but as an officer, and what we do and we preach is having involved dads and getting dad involved from day one by providing really cool gear for them and things like that. It seems like a lot of the problems today in society, whether it be the rioting and the looting, because you've got people who were never reprimanded as a child and were never told no, and they don't have respect for authority, and all these kinds of things kind of stems from the lack of a good home, and especially the lack of a father to kind of show them right from wrong and to respect and all these different things. How much of that did you see as an officer of like disrespectful little assholes because, they had a single mom at home who was working 2 jobs to make ends meet, but wasn't there enough to be able to like put some of those foundational sort of things, instill those things in their children? How much of that did you run into?
A lot. I couldn't even give you a number. It was almost every day.
Is that one of the things that led you to kind of spend time with some of the younger crowd at skate parks and that kind of stuff? That it's community building, right? Hey, cops are cool. We're not all bad guys. We're friends. We're just people too. You can trust me. If you need something, I'm going to be here for you. There's that side of it, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever kind of take on sort of that fatherly role for any of the young kids?
I'm not going to say, like I was some, big mentor or something. I certainly tried. I mean, every time, we dealt with a lot of teenagers, preteens, even, I'm 33. So when I see one of these kids in their early 20s, I'm like, man, I'm getting old right now. So I'm like, I try to be that older, more wise figure, and I try to help them, but I don't know. A lot of them so you could break through to some of them, but I think that going back to what you said about the parents, I think parents are one of the biggest issues in this country, whether it's bad parenting. And, us parents, we just try to figure it out.
We're trying to figure it out the whole time.
You do what you can, right?
Yep.
Bad parenting or a lack of parents even in the house, whether it's especially the father. We dealt with a lot of young men mostly who they didn't have a father in the house. They were either in jail, they were dead, they just
abandon their kids.
They just abandon their kids.
Yeah.
A lot of single mothers, and they try to do what they can, but if the mother was raised a certain way, they just kind of let their kid go out and do whatever. Like we'd arrest kids for armed robbery. Like 15 years old, armed robbery of a gas station with a handgun. Right? We have them at our police station, and their mom comes in and yells at us like we did something wrong. I'm like, you got to be careful what you say nowadays, but it's just amazing. That's the level of parenting that these people are bringing to their kids. They're doing them a disservice, and then not having a father in the house is just, we had I mean, there's a lot of issues with that. And unfortunately it's a major issue in the Black community.
Yeah.
It's just, it's just the way it goes. A lot of the teens that we were dealing with were minorities that didn't have a father in the house.
Right. That was one of the things that Dakota Mayer brought up to us when we had him on the podcast. Yeah. And he said, and people listening, forgive me because I've said this a few times, but he said, one of the reasons I'm here and one of the reasons I wanted to be on the podcast and be a part of what you guys have going on is because you guys are setting a standard for what good parenting should look like.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there who were raised in homes that are all so broken and so messed up and lack of fathers. And they think that for them, that's normal. They don't know different from that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And he said, you guys are setting a new standard for what good parents should be and what they should look like, and putting things out there publicly, whether that's through this podcast or watching our Instagram stories and how we interact with our kids and telling them and showing them what's right from wrong and setting that standard and that new level of expectations, because I think that's what has been lacking in society. I mean, Dakota, said, he's like, dude, I didn't even know houses didn't have wheels till I was 11. And that's just like, he lived in a trailer park, whatever. Like, but so that was his normal, you know what I mean? And then he's like, then he gets that perspective outside of like that little town and being like, oh, things are a lot different. Or, having the cops kick in the door of their trailer multiple times because his mom's selling drugs, or whatever. And he's like, to him, that was just normal. He didn't know that wasn't happening at his friends' houses or whatever, So it's powerful for us to think that we can potentially make a big dent in society by setting that standard and getting dads more involved early on. That could actually make a dent in the way that society is.
Oh my God. Well, that's one of the biggest issues. And I think any issue that we have in society, a lot of it is attributed to parenting, whether it's bad parenting or a lack of parents even in the house. Yeah. It just, think about, like my 2-year-old, or let's say any 2-year-old at that age. I have to be careful what I even say, because if I say shit, guess what she's saying?
Yep. Shit.
I mean, like seconds later, and I'm like,
well, here's the problem, and the thing that your little kids are kind of like puppies. They're so cute and innocent, and you let them get away with a bunch of stuff early on because they don't know any better or whatever. But you have to teach them to know better. You have to, even at 2. They're not supposed to be climbing on that. They're not supposed to be this or that, or opening this drawer or climbing on the counter. Like, you got to smack them on the butt a little bit and be like, no, you don't do that. And then they start to gain respect for you. They're not walking over you. They don't think that they can get away with things. And you got to start it day one. And the
bad habits start very, very, very young.
You have got to.
And my daughter will mirror anything. So if I'm behaving a certain way or saying something, things, kids will literally mirror what they see and hear. Mm-hmm. So, if I'm a criminal and I'm dealing drugs out of my house, or I'm beating my wife, or, how do you think the kid's going to turn out seeing this, thinking it's normal
for that kind of behavior? They're either going to go on to beat their wives, or the daughter is going to think it's acceptable for her husband to beat them. So, you and I mean, we have girls, so we have to set a standard for them of what type of man they should marry, how they should be treated as a woman. We have to treat them with respect. We have to treat our wives with respect, all that kind of stuff, so that they understand what their standard is going to be, right? Super important. What are some of the values that you're trying to instill in your children? You've got a 2-year-old and a 13-year-old.
And a 13-year-old stepson.
So are there certain things that you're very aware of that you're trying to instill in them?
I think I want them to never be a bully. That's huge. I mean, my stepson is such a good kid, man. He, like if there's a bully in school, and my stepson's huge. He's almost 6 foot, 13 years old. I'm like, you go to your room. But he's such a good kid, man. Like if someone's getting bullied in school, like there was this tiny little kid. He was maybe like 4 feet tall at his old school that he would like help get out of the bus. He would bring him to the bathroom. He would make sure no one picked on him. He had, I forget if it was cerebral palsy or what he had, but he got picked on a little bit. So, my son made sure he didn't. So, just overall being a good person, treating people with respect, and just, working hard and that, I mean, all the other things with success and all that, that'll come. I mean, if you have the work ethic instilled in you and you're not afraid to, dig in and do the work, and you treat people with respect, and, and especially like be personable,
right?
Like that's another big thing. Like I want them to be able to have a conversation with someone and not just, I hate texting. I'll just call random friends and be like, yo, what's up? And they're like, hello?
Yeah.
Like, no one's used to phone calls anymore, but I like them to be able to just
interact with people.
When you meet, I want them to be the type of kids, like when you meet them, you're like, wow, they were really cool. They were different. I never really met someone like that.
Yeah. And it's really that basic. Like it's those handful of things that if you instill and create a solid foundation for, the rest will fall in place.
Yeah, absolutely will.
For sure. So what was the reason for leaving the police department?
I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't. I was getting written up all the time. They really they disliked me for social media, for
really,
me being opinionated. When I started gaining followers on social media, it was amplified because they knew more people were seeing my videos, and they just
what was it they didn't like about that? I feel like it was positive stuff.
So the skateboard thing, I thought they would have loved it, but they didn't.
That's such a positive thing for the department in my eyes.
You would think so. And here's going back to an earlier conversation that we had about, I'll throw incentives out there, right? Negative behavior or negative things are incentivized. So if I go out and I write people traffic citations, which absolutely hate, like I would maybe write a couple a month. If you were suspended, I'll write you a ticket. If you crashed into someone because you're an idiot, I'll give you a ticket. But otherwise, like I'm not pulling over good, hardworking people and giving them a ticket.
And 8 miles and over this.
Because they were doing 10 miles over. Their tail light is out. No, I'm not doing that. I don't generate revenue for anyone. Okay. I'm here to do a job and serve my community, not generate revenue for the state and the department and the judges and whoever else gets a cut of the ticket. I don't do that. That's just the way I was.
I mean, so that kind of stuff was incentivized.
I spent my time, making possession with intent to deliver arresting a guy because he beat the crap out of his wife, real people that should be arrested, so the negative things like the tickets and the arrests and all this other stuff is incentivized, not just by the department, but by the federal government, by the state government. They're given grant funding for more tickets they write. Even if it's like seatbelt stuff, they get grant money for that. All that stuff is incentivized. It's not, there's no incentive for me to go out there, hang out with the community and be like, oh, yo, you want to skateboard? Me and a couple friends, local business owners a few years ago, we gave away, I think it was like 200 backpacks, and it was all filled with like school supplies. And I went into the worst part of the city and just hung out, gave backpacks out of my car. I didn't even post about it because you don't need to.
You're not there to toot. That's not why you were doing it.
I took a picture with these three girls that like they wouldn't even leave me alone. They just loved me. They were these three cute little girls. They hung out with me for like an hour. It was awesome. But and that type of stuff is not incentive. There's no incentive. And there's no incentive for a cop to get out of his car and go just hang out with his community.
Yeah,
there's incentive for him to go pull you over and write you tickets and arrest you.
Yeah. There's no incentive for it until you realize that everyone starts to hate cops because they're incentivized to do the thing that everyone hates instead of building community building.
The incentive is there, but people don't want to. They don't want to.
Everything is financially motivated.
Exactly. There's a monetary incentive for almost everything. The incentive for me to go in that community that hates us, and they'd be like, "Hey, Shaw, I appreciate you just coming out here and talking to me like a human." That was cool. Verbatim. That was a guy that thanked me. He's like, "No one has ever come out here and just talked to us. I appreciate that." Shook my hand every time I drove by this. I mean, this block is like one of the worst parts in the city, and it's very, very impoverished. Very, very bad. Every time I saw them, I drive by, I wave at them, they scream my name, hey, Shaw, and they loved it. Now, when something happens in that neighborhood, guess who they wanted to talk to?
Yeah.
If they saw drugs being dealt, if they saw a guy shoot somebody, which happened multiple times in that neighborhood, guy beat his wife and they saw it, they provided information.
Yeah, well, and the same thing happens overseas.
They start to trust you.
Yeah,
you're not just and this is a big issue with policing nowadays. How often do you see a cop out of his car?
Very rarely.
Almost never. You see him, he's just driving by with his window up. Mm-hmm. There's no connection between the police and the community anymore. It's just he responds to a call. That's it. There's no connection. There's no bond. There's no relationship. Not everyone's gonna like you. You could be the nicest guy in the world. Not everyone's gonna like you, but for the most part, people appreciate you just talking with them.
So frustrating, and it leaves me speechless. And I have so many thoughts going through my head, and I wish I could just do things. It's
very frustrating because I know the kind of person I am, and I know the things that I tried to do and wanted to do. And listen, I'm not perfect. I make plenty of mistakes. I would never try to say I'm some awesome, perfect guy, but I know the type of cop that I was, and I know the things that I tried to do and wanted to do.
It's all intent, right? You have good intent. You're not trying to do anything bad, ill will, harm anybody. Everything you did was with good intent. Yep. It just didn't align with the department.
Yep.
Right.
Unfortunately, which
it's sad.
I don't know why I wouldn't.
Yeah, it's sad. And that lack of community building and the stuff that I won't beat a dead horse, but that's what's gotten some of these big cities in big trouble.
Yeah.
But to the point about poor parenting and a lot of the problems in society, how do you feel about a lot of the human trafficking stuff that's coming up, finally coming to a head and surfacing? Have you been paying attention?
I love it. I don't understand how or why this became a trend to start posting about it, but this is a trend I can get behind. Mm-hmm. I love it. All these stupid dance challenges. I hate all that stuff. I've always had, cause I have a little bit, I guess a bigger page you could call it. I always had people messaging me like, oh, you're going to do this challenge and that challenge and this dance challenge, lip sync challenge. I don't do any of that stupid crap, but this is a trend I can get behind. I don't know why people just recently decided to start
talking about it.
I don't know.
I think a lot of it was Epstein was kind of like the start of it, right?
That happened
when he didn't kill himself
over a year ago. So I don't know what lit a fire under people and really made them want to start talking about it, but I love it.
Yeah, there's a couple of big players in the game who are sort of heading up this whole thing. Guys like Craig Sawyer, guys like who's the other guy? Tim Ballard. Tim Ballard. Yeah.
Yep.
He's doing a lot for it, and I think it's finally just there's shareable content. There's enough information and facts out there that people are becoming more and more educated around it and becoming more and more aware of it, and so people are talking about it. And I think I agree. It's super awesome. We're trying to spread.
I don't think people can comprehend how many pedophiles and how many of these sick people are out there. And to give you guys a little bit of insight, a good friend of mine is a detective in a county that I used to live in, and he specializes in online sex crimes against children. Long story short, there's programs that he uses on his computer, and he can go on it and basically run it by county, by zip code, whatever. And it'll show you real time everyone and their IP address that's currently downloading child porn. And it's in the fucking thousands per county. People don't even understand how many of these pedophiles are out there. I can't even, you would have to see it to believe it. Right. I mean, you can hear the stats there's a million kids a year that go missing.
But I think that's the disconnect. Is it because some of the numbers are so big, it's hard for people to really fathom and understand? Yeah. And it's like an unrelatable thing because it's such a big number. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yep. These people are everywhere. And just for fun, Go on your, like Pennsylvania has Megan's Law, sex offender search, right? Pretty much every state has some type of database where you can go search for your state. Go on there and put your zip code and search like 5 miles. And you'll be shocked at how many registered sex offenders probably live right in your neighborhood. And you don't even know it. You don't even know it. I mean, people are so oblivious to this stuff.
Well, they don't want to believe that it's happening, right?
Yeah.
They want to kind of turn an eye to it
Yeah.
and not believe it's happening and that it sounds like a bigger problem than it actually is.
Yeah.
But it's a bigger problem than you think.
Huge. It's a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's a $150 billion industry and growing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what does that tell you? You know, $150 billion a year for human trafficking. And that's not just for, you know, sex trafficking. And that's, you know, enslaving them in hard labor and you name it.
Right.
You know, little kids, you know, babies from
all the way up to adults.
All the way up to, you know, elderly, hard labor and everything.
Yeah.
It's insane. And people, you know, a lot of times they ignore it. But I'm super glad that everyone's starting to post about it and talk about it, because the more I think when people, because I've had people that really didn't follow it too much because I post a lot about it, they'll look at something I post and they message me and they're like, oh my God, that made me sick. I had no idea. I'm like, yeah, that it's everywhere.
That's real,
it's right in your face and you don't even know.
Yeah. The more we expose it and shine light into those shadows, man, the better. So I'm all about it. Cool. Let's transition. Let's talk about Goon Squad.
Yeah.
First of all, so Goon Squad is his company. This is more of an apparel company, right? Lifestyle brand.
So it's supposed to be gun accessories and ammo, but now with COVID, I literally can't get any of that. So I figured, because I told myself in the beginning, I was like, all right, I don't want to be an apparel company, right? I'm going to make some apparel and I'm just going to, you know, kind of slide it in there a little bit, you know, for branding. But, you know, with COVID and I mean, I literally can't get anything.
Yeah. And established businesses can't
ammo, you know, gun accessories, you know, I have some accounts with some of the biggest distributors in the country, and it's like PMags, 0, you know, this accessory, 0. So I'm like, I mean, I want to grow it, so I might as well just do apparel. So apparently I'm a clothing company now.
I love it. Talk to me about where did Goon Squad come from? I
don't know. I kind of feel sometimes like, even though I'm a nice guy, like, I'm kind of a goon. I like to do crazy shit. And if someone talks to me crazy, I might slap you. So, you know, it's just kind of like my personality, you know, like
your alter ego.
I love getting along with people, you know, like my wife calls me the mayor of the gym because I go there and I'm like messing up our workout and I'm like, got to chat with this person, got to chat with that person. Like, I love making friends. But at the same time, I don't put up with any shit, and I'll call you out right to your face. So it's just, you know, plus the shoot, you know, I go shooting a lot and I train and it just kind of like all meshes together. Yeah.
You're a big advocate for fitness stuff. And that's kind of a big part of your life is fitness and the training. Mm-hmm. And I know that was a big deal for you. I remember some early rants from you when I first kind of discovered you, and like you'd go off on these rants about, you know, big, fat, obese, overweight cops. Yeah. And, you know, how can you expect to save people if you can't get out of your own way, and like just crazy rants you'd go on.
Now, if you're an out of shape cop, don't get mad at me. All right. Because the people that are getting mad, and I don't care, you get mad, I don't really care. But if you're getting upset, it's because it's true. I'm always willing to help you guys. If you message me, I'll help you. I'll help you with a training plan, or, you know, listen, I'm not like an expert. If you want someone to write you a plan, I'll direct you to someone who could do that, whether it's nutrition or training or whatever it is. I'll help you. If you need to know something about shooting or whatever, I have connections everywhere. I train all over the place. I get more training now than I ever did as cop, which is awesome. Yeah. You know, but that was a huge thing that I built my platform on, because the thing about it like this, for all the police officers watching, right? If you're out wherever, you're nowhere near home, right? And your wife, your daughter, whoever, mother, sister, brother, they call the police because something's happening, right? There's shots being fired. Someone's breaking in their house, maybe home invasion. Would you want you to show up or another cop on your department that's trained and fit and knows his shit?
Mm-hmm.
And answer that honestly. Answer it honestly.
Right.
And if you can't honestly hold yourself accountable and be like, I probably wouldn't want myself showing up. Because you know what? That's the type of person I want to be. I want to be the person that I want me to show up.
Yeah.
I want me or someone
you
like
want to
me
be
to show
the
up.
best. For sure.
Yes. If I'm not around, I want someone just like me to show up and handle business.
Mm-hmm.
I want his fitness to be on point. I want him to be able to fight and shoot and all of that. Yeah. And hey, maybe that's not enough, but you're certainly giving yourself an advantage if you have all that.
For sure.
You're certainly not helping yourself if you show up and you're 350 pounds and can barely get out of your car. You have crumbs on your uniform, so.
Oh man, that's too funny.
Don't get upset. If you need help, seriously, reach out.
Yeah. And tell them again, it's at @Inc_monster with 2 R's.
2 R's.
What's the website for Goon Squad?
GSTweapons.com.
Awesome. Anything else? Any other final parting words, Mike?
I don't think so. I mean, without getting like too political or pro or anti-cop or whatever, just be a good person.
How do you think this election is going to play out? You think it's going to be good or bad?
I think either way, it's going to be bad. I think Trump is going to win. I think the Democrats are just kind of throwing them out there because they know they're going to lose the election. So they're just kind of burning up 2 people that almost everybody hates. I mean, just how it is.
How did you? How did you feel about Kanye when he decided he was going to run for president for like 5 minutes?
I didn't take it seriously for 1 second. Kanye is woke, but I think he's got some mental health issues
for sure.
I'm not an expert, but he might need to be on some medication.
My thought on the whole thing was he's like buddies with Trump. And I thought this was like a plan to just get votes away from Biden.
Maybe.
But
then he came out and he was all pissed off at Trump. So I don't know.
I don't know. I don't pay enough attention.
It depends, if he takes his medication for the day or not.
He went off the deep end with some of that.
He's all over the place. I can appreciate the fact that he's speaking out against things, and sometimes they're coherent rants.
Right.
Somewhat.
Cool. Awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us some of your opinions and kind of outlook of the world and what you've seen and experienced. So I appreciate it. For everyone listening, thanks for listening. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, leave some ratings and reviews. We would greatly appreciate it. Make sure you go follow Mike. We'll leave links in all the descriptions and show notes and all that kind of stuff. And we'll see you in the next episode.